Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today on the show we have Jerremy Newsome. We're going to be talking about his personal journey for creating wealth and abundance in his own life, both spiritually, personally, and financially, and his vision for creating a better America with a podcast and beyond. So, without any further ado, let's hand it over to Jerremy Newsome. Jerremy Newsome, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Kyle, thanks for the opportunity. Really excited, totally thrilled.
I am excited to have you here today and to be exploring probably some conversations that I haven't had before on this show. But before we dive into that, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience by telling us a bit about who you are and how you're showing up in the world today.
I'm a husband, been married, it'll be 4 years and 2 weeks. I have 3 boys, Gabriel, Jason, and Jerremy. I'm an Ironman. I'm an ultra endurance athlete. I also happen to serve as the world's greatest wealth coach. My focus is helping people not only be wealthy, but feel wealthy. And there's usually some type of random disconnect between both of those. Either they have it, don't feel like they have it, or they don't have it and feel like they have it. And so when you blend both of those together, I call that prosperity. Right? When the mindset of wealth and abundance meets the material, physical possession of actually having it.
I love that. And one of the most interesting things about the way that you just answered that is quite uncommon, is the order that you answered to these things. Very rarely, when given an opportunity to hop on a podcast, especially a podcast about entrepreneurs and world changers and leaders, do people lead with, I'm a family man, I'm a father first. And I want to give you a hat tip, particularly because I think that is a sign of wealth right there, instead of, and what people who want to acquire and create wealth aspire to do with that wealth, or to create the space and the freedom to have those things. And while I'm sure wealth helps a lot, I don't think that it's the only avenue to this. And so tell me a little bit about just that reflection and what that means to you, and what this journey has been to create a business that has facilitated this area of you.
Yeah, I would love that, Kyle. Thank you. I mean, it really probably culminated very close to 5 years ago. And then 5 years ago, I was on a healing journey. In 2017, which was 9 years ago, I became wealthy again for the 4th time financially. So I made a bunch of money 3 previous times. And by a bunch of money, I mean millions. I made millions 3 separate times, lost all of it 3 separate times. So in 2017, I made some millions again. I was like, I'm not losing it. I'm going to keep it. So I said yes to all levels of modalities that were different than what I've been doing. If you want different results, you got to do different things. So I started saying yes to a bunch of what I would probably call, what a lot of people probably call spiritual, woo, mystical, whatever, right? The healing space. Went on meditation retreats, silent retreats, darkness retreats, all kinds of stuff like that. But to really bring it home, I signed up for one event that was very feminine. It was called the Dreams Course, Unleash Your Inner, Unleash the Life of Your Dreams, the Dreams Course. And it had rainbows and unicorns and flowers and butterflies. I was like, wow. And I was the only guy in this class. So for 30 more seconds of the story, the facilitator of the class was sitting around in the Zoom session, and she said, what is the meaning of life, and do you believe in miracles? She's asking all of these women in a very ego, masculine state. I was like, can't wait for her to call on me, because I'm going to tell these women exactly what's up, right? I'm going to give them the right answer. And so the woman gets to me, do you believe in miracles? What's the meaning of life? I was like, no, I don't believe in miracles. I believe in working your ass off and getting shit done. And the meaning of life is all about the pursuit of happiness. And she looks me dead in my soul. She says, are you tired of pursuing? Are you ready to just be happy? And I was like, speechless. And then I said, yes. was like, I'm ready. And I ended up marrying her, Kyle, 1 year later. That was my wife. I just didn't know it at the time. My dream woman, my soulmate. I didn't believe in soulmates. I was the alpha male, right? Doing all the women chasing thing. It was just such a tender moment of healing and of true transparency that she saw into what I was doing. She saw into the facade, and she allowed me to heal and to grow and to blend. So I always give huge props to my wife, Svetlana. And it's, to your point, wealth can be all manners of things, and money is one formulaic equation to wealth. But if you don't have family, if you don't have relationships, you don't have your health, all of your money means nothing. It saved no one in the Titanic if they're in that water for a long period of time. It comes down to really being aware that you can have everything that you want all of the time, but you need to make sure you know what it is.
I'm really curious how you discovered this program and how somebody with a high masculine temperament would make the decision. And maybe it's after gaining and losing millions of dollars several times of enough ass kickings that we're willing to try something different. But I'm very curious about the decision-making process within yourself. Should I sign up for this thing? There's rainbows and unicorns on this. This seems like the right thing. I'm going to do it.
Right. Man, I will say the vast majority of people, when they see any type of like self-development course, probably get kind of scared anyway, because it's an investment into a non-tangible. You don't generally get an immediate return, which is something we might talk about later. But when you're investing into yourself directly, it's kind of like going to the gym for a year. If you go to the gym for a year and you do the things the right way and you eat the right way, you're going to get really good results. So to that state, I had made a promise on myself. It was really a commitment, Kyle. And that's what led me to that. It was a commitment to say yes to anything I had not done before. And I made that commitment October of 2018, after I had experienced a really, really powerfully exciting and relatively detrimental plant medicine experience. I went down some pretty dark paths and battled a lot of the demons that lay within me at the time. And ultimately, man, I was just like, I'm going to say yes to everything. Anything that feels and looks holistic and beautiful and spiritual. Is like, I need to learn more about God. I need to learn more about the Creator. And I just needed to heal. And I didn't know it at the time. But I heard one person say this before, that the feminine's role very often is to heal the masculine. The masculine's role is to protect and give security and certainty to the feminine. And so I had just really gotten drawn into that landscape of something I'd never signed up for before. Because normally I'm going to the sales conferences, make more money, crush sales, follow up, get it done. And this was more about allowing and receiving. But I wanted this life that I never had, which was wife, kids, unconditional love. I wanted that. But I knew, Kyle, that if I wanted something I had never had, I'd have to do something I never done.
Another thing that I'm curious about, this sounds very spiritual and somewhat of an intellectual journey, but you call it a healing journey. You've mentioned this word several times. As somebody who has had their spiritual journey, their intellectual journey, their emotional journey manifest through a healing journey, I'm curious of your definition of that word. Was this a physical thing? Was this mostly spiritual? How did your healing manifest and your unhealing express itself?
What a legend. What a great question. For me, it was more spiritual because me and God had a lot of battles until like 4 years ago, maybe 3. We still have fights from time to time, but I never win those fights. But for me, it was very spiritual because I didn't know who I was at the absolute core of me. And I didn't give any reverence or power to anything other than me. And I was very me. which you all know the term, right? Ego, edging God out. And there's 5 levels of spirituality. I was really operating in the second one, right? The very, very first level of spirituality is to me. Everything happens to you. You are a victim of life. And then when you're tired of that happening, you're like, screw it. I want to make a bunch of money. I want to crush. I want to succeed. I want to achieve. And you go, buy me. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the world on my back, and I'm going to go into hell, and I'm going to bring back whatever I need. And I'm going to make it happen. And I lived in that for a long time, but that does lead to burnout always. The buy me stage always leads to eventually doing everything by yourself, never having surrender, never having a purpose, never getting pulled. You're just pushing. That's an energy that will burn out. So then the third evolution of the spiritual journey is with me. So now you're co-creating with something. A lot of people call it God, call it universe, call it manifestation, call it angels, call it Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, whatever. Some huge, incredible force and energy is helping you. And that's the stage that I've been in really in the last 3 to 4 years. And now I'm hopefully entering a phase that my wife is in right now, which is through me. Through me is the 4th spiritual phase of healing, Kyle, which now you become the hands and feet. You are on this earth as a physical representation of divine. We are physical beings living a spiritual experience. And so you're now looking to pull in all the things that you were designed for, destined for, created for, and now you get to experience in the physical. And then last but not least is as me. And it's this realization and this operation that you are created in the image of greatness. You are created in the image of love. And the goal is to have the greatest, most amazing, most abundant expression of love and gratitude and abundance at all times. Then you operate at a frequency that's different than other people. I haven't seen many people operate in that phase. I can name 2 because I'm bold enough to do that. But on this podcast, 2 people that I can say without question that most people would know and recognize is Michael Beckwith and Joe Dispenza. Those are only because I spend a lot of time in the masculine leadership role. There's definitely women. And I'd probably say Marianne Williamson's definitely very close to that. I just haven't worked a lot in person with her, but I have worked with Michael and Joe. And to those perspectives, like that as me just allows so much rapid change. And when you heal the spiritual, you're going to heal the physical, or what a lot of people would call the etheric, right? That energy that's 5-6 inches off your body, which most problems, situations, addictions, traumas, disease, that's where they start. Is an etheric body, and they eventually, to your point, manifest into the physical.
I've never heard this spiritual kind of levels expressed in this way, but I can see my own journey in that. Through my teenage years, I had self-selected and really identified deeply with Christianity. And the suicide of a friend and somebody who I was mentoring right around the age of 19, I made a choice. I can remember making this choice, a very specific moment of deciding, I don't really want to believe in God. I want to believe in myself. And entering the by me phase, and probably in a little bit of to me, whatever was happening before that. And it really defined a lot of the my 20s. And I started traveling the world, particularly in South America. And I remember swimming in an Amazonian lake and getting my head submerged underwater, which would end up getting me very sick with some waterborne things that would change the course of my life. And I had kind of an iron endurance of just being able to endure my way and ignore the things that were happening to me, until I found myself years later helping a group of health and wellness experts position themselves as great speakers and great storytellers. And I can remember one woman looking at me and seeing kind of the bags under my eyes, my face, all these things falling apart. My body was falling apart, and showing or explaining how she could help me. And I could also help her in many ways. And we, through our work, I was able to get a new lease on life and actually get access to my mindset and energy and my body. And it's still been a very much defining journey that's been manifest in physicality, but I see very much that it's a part of my spirituality of trusting myself, of trusting the universe,
Come on,
and
baby.
over the last 5 or so years, redefining my relationship with God and reconnecting with that source and that spirit in a way that was on my terms and or just in a way that worked for me and that I could give back and serve. And it's definitely still a process that I'm exploring, but I appreciate that perspective and can see, the many different things playing out in my own way for that. And yeah, I agree. I as far as like Joe Dispenza really channeling this, and it's something we can aspire to and move towards in many ways, and finding our ways to express and picture the ideal future that we want to create. And it starts with imagining things, which is something I deeply believe in, and I'm all about, not just in how we create stories and influence from the stage, but the same techniques that we do to create a compelling story to move people that might be listening to this show or listening to us on the stage are the same things that we do, that Joe encourages us to do, to picture a future that's so compelling that draws us to it, to practice feeling that.
Yes.
And so I want to transition into, because you set an intention, or you have somewhat of a new project, a podcast and a message that I wanted to open up just a little bit of discussion around this and the future that you want to create within that. Can you give us a little bit of a hint at what's coming up, or what's coming forward for you this next year in your creation?
Amazing. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. You know, the big one, the new creation is I sold a company on November 5th of last year that I worked, 10 years on. And it was, to your point, just time for creation, time for a new project, a new set of time commitments and just new opportunities. And so the podcast that I'm launching, if any of my listeners love listening to podcasts, is called Solving America's Problems. And it's designed as a political podcast, but hold on before you exit. I have a very long history in being in the stock market and helping people feel comfortable in and around Wall Street, as it were. Being okay with money, being okay with massive, massive abundance, seeing, knowing, feeling, and understanding that the stock market is designed for wealth expansion and creation. And a lot of people are scared of that world, right? What are the 4 things you should never talk about? Sex, money, religion, and politics. Well, we talked a little bit of religion on this podcast. We'll probably talk money. This is politics. It's like, whoa, that's 3 of the 4. So this particular podcast is designed to just be one person's journey to learn and understand what are our problems as a country, and are they solvable? And if they are solvable, how do we solve them? Knowing that we can't attack and divide, we have to circulate information and navigate the propensities for people to start dividing on one particular topic. And the reason I'm doing this, Kyle, is because in 2032, I'm going to run for president. And that's the reason I've been created. It's the full reason I'm here on this earth. Every time I go to a Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, meditation conference to expand your net worth, anytime I go to anything where I'm supposed to deep dive into who I am, why I'm here, what I'm supposed to be doing, that's the answer I've always got since I was 6 years old. It's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to run. You're supposed to be. You're supposed to lead. You're supposed to be in that role. I can't think of, plan, or ponder a better way to serve than to be in that role. And that sounds crazy to the vast majority of humans, but to me, it's like, what else would I do? Most people want to be football players or baseball players. I need to be president. So the podcast is a conversation. It's a discussion. It's not I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, this is right, this is wrong, this is my take, this is, what if we're all wrong? What if we're all right? How can we fix it? How can we adjust? Let's hear ideas. Let's hear topics. Let's hear it through love. And then let's hear it through understanding that, yes, we got some problems. This country's got some problems. How do we fix them?
I would be curious about the listener that you want to reach within the podcast, and how are the problems in the country at large and it manifesting and expressing themselves in their personal life? What dissatisfaction do I have, and how do I see that in the world that would make this show something compelling for me to listen to?
I believe three things, Kyle, and thank you for asking such a poignant question. So thing number one, what is the main problem that I'm trying to solve that I feel like everyone faces? And that's the problem that education in this country has failed all of us, most of us. I think we all see, feel, and know that, especially if you're a parent. If you're a parent, you know the school system isn't helping, accelerating. It's being a daycare. And even then, as most parents I talk to, there's a subconscious fear of dropping off your kid at school because our schools aren't safe. Teachers are underpaid. We're doing the exact same education model that we did 60 years ago. That's a problem. My number one problem I'm looking to solve is, if this country is better educated, and if we change the educational system in America drastically, we become healthier by default, we become happier by default, and we become more prosperous by default. That's what happens when you educate the populace. And so that's step number one. Step number two, for anyone who is listening, is someone who would like to either throw their opinions in a hat where we can dilute it down to the absolute best and then start working on actual steps of implementation, or someone who feels like they've never really, truly loved or enjoyed or understood or had a part in politics. And you might know this, 42% of the United States of America does not vote. Mm-hmm. Now imagine capturing capturing 45% of that 42% plus any of the other parties. That person would win. And I think that's one of my beliefs, is if I can focus on a group of people that never really listen to politics because they feel it's way too divisive, they feel it's way too harsh, they feel it's way too icky and gross. What if it was a little bit of a fresher take? What if it was, this is an opinion show? This is not an opinion show. This is a problem and a solution show. Let's get on. Let's have a hash out. Let's have a discussion. Let's approach it from, there is a solution to this problem, but we don't know what it is because we have the problem right now. So let's keep addressing it. Let's keep talking about it. Let's keep figuring it out. And then we go from there. And I would say the final thing is, make it fun. That's what I do. My number one skill set, Kyle, is distilling really complex things into very easy to understand solutions. That's what I've done in my career. I've been paid very well for it. And I want to now open it up to the public where we can just start having more guided, unique, cool conversations rather than always hate. But now we get to really dive down to the root issue and then make those implementations.
So if we were to, you said the third one as more of an aspiration and a solution rather than a problem. So make it fun. Reversed is walking on eggshells. What is that expressed as a problem or an experience? I feel very deeply and could talk longer than we have time for on the first two, and could get very fired up.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So just that, and I've never really enjoyed or had a part in politics. Kind of sounds like that is like it's fun. I mean, but that's what we said on the second one. And I've seen this, and where my thing is a lot of the aspiring candidates that have really resonated with me and say the things that make the most sense to me have often been marginalized and put on the fringes, are not given a proper chance to compete in this arena, which I've found to be a large problem. And education is something that is also really poignant to me. The first book that I wrote was called The College Entrepreneur, which was I don't know if this is the right word, but kind of, it was a perspective on how to approach university as somebody who was in an entrepreneurial world, where they were like, don't go to school, don't do these things, it's a waste of time. And then I also spent a lot of time in higher education, and they were like, well, it's all fine, just get a degree and follow the rules and you'll be fine. But there was a creative middle way that students weren't shown, and it took me being an administrator for a few years at a university and looking behind the scenes to suggest a different path in a way that was more entrepreneurial, but within the school system, and using the reputation and resources to create something that was more than just a degree, which my degree is still in the envelope that it came in once I graduated.
I love that.
And I think people getting healthier as well. I believe that probably 30 to 40% of the country has some kind of health condition similar to what I have right now or have had. And even if 10 years, I know more about this. I've spoken with some of the leading health people ever. And when I wake up in the morning and I have like gut health issues, it is expressed as anxiety. And I have very rarely, 1 in 1,000 times, have thought to myself, wow, my gut dysbiosis is really bad today. It's getting my anxiety. And I believe that a lot of people have that, and they think it's the others. The other political party is doing this. That's why I'm so upset. And we're being more divided from this. And also I think that being able to have a part and have a safe discussion that people can actually, I think most people really do want the same things on both sides of the aisle, to live a good life that they can prosper and take care of their families and be peaceful on their own. Yeah. But we've been turned against each other in so many ways.
Oh, you nailed it. You 100% nailed it. I mean, that's, in fact, guess who's going to be a guest on my podcast, Kyle, in the near future? Because I have episodes queued up right now about college. Is it worth it? What does that look like? How much change do we need there in that environment? So that's already going to happen. I've already fired off an email to my producer. So we're going to be reaching out to my guy, Kyle Gray.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Because just to your point, man, like we have to have these discussions, but there needs, if you look at this country and you are not saying that our education system is broken, you are oblivious or you never went to school. And that's okay if it's the second one, but if it's the first one, you're just living in ignorance. There's no one that can say, on a whole, we're doing it great. Are there individual small charter schools or private schools that are doing great? Absolutely. We need to get that out to the public. We need to get that to special states. We need to get that all over. It needs to become a much more important aspect of our focus. So I'm with you, man. Sounds like me and you're on alignment with that.
So next up, tell me about what is different about this podcast, or different about this approach, or different about your philosophy that is better or unique or meets these needs and problems that you want to accentuate or showcase within the show.
I think the big unique distinction is most podcasts that I have listened to in the past very, very often have a host with an opinion, maybe a co-host with a particular opinion, and then one guest, maybe two, max. My goal is to bring a panel of people. We have a longer discussion, and then we break this segment just for the listeners into smaller bite-sized episodes and timestamps. But ultimately, it is getting a giant conglomerate, 5, 4, 6 people together to have an open dialogue that's controlled, that's moderated, that's helped, that's allowed, so that we can have more of an open conversation and just blend and flow with each other and kind of understand. And yes, there'll be certain episodes where I'll have individual guests, but the majority of the time I'm going to have numerous people talking, not over themselves, but at once in a circular motion where I'm collecting data, because I'm going to also use artificial intelligence and, data records to just really facilitate and assimilate everything. And as all of that is collated, then I can blend it together and then start piecing out really, really unique aspects to these conversations that happen over the course of weeks or months, and then begin to start making those changes at the ground. Because one of the things that I personally believe in, when someone says, why are you running for president? You have no political background. I say, yes. That's, I think, the goal. I don't think that the president should have a lot of career politic background. I think they should be a man or woman of the people, someone who has come up from the up, someone who has gone through America from wherever they started, the bottom or the middle or the top, and worked and created jobs and provided and felt and understood and seen and went to schools, both public or private, who endured and spent time serving and helping, someone that wasn't and isn't a career politician. And I think to that point, if there was any role where that should be very important, it should probably be the presidential role. So that's the other take that I think is potentially, hopefully interesting, because again, most of the people that are doing their political podcasts, Kyle, don't have any interest in actually going into politics. They just want to talk about it and just get people all stirred up and fired up on their side. Case in point, Alex Jones. He could never run for any office, ever. But he has a very, very, very cannonball approach to his message, and he has a large, large following. But he would never, ever win any office. And it's just because he's too abrasive. He is too focused of an opinion. And that opinion is not one of love. It's not one of character. It's not one of integrity, but it's one of like, let me demonize a particular group of people and then bring them down because I'm right.
I think that's interesting because from this particular point of view, he doesn't have skin in the game and has a different kind of structure of motivation because of that, because he doesn't aspire to be part of it. And so by being divisive or being abrasive in that way, it helps him gain attention but or other motivations. And I think that this is a really interesting that with political aspirations that you have skin in the game and want to be represented and represent in a different way.
That's it, man. That's exactly right.
Okay. So now we're going to tap into some of that amazing feminine energy that you have been cultivating. Here's the game we're going to play. I'm going to read back some of these problem things, and I want you to feel in your body where these words are happening and occurring for you. Education is failing us. School is daycare. Schools aren't safe. There's probably a time where you were worried about this for your kids that we've heard a little bit in the background here. And the time or feeling this tension with politics, feeling disempowered and feeling frustrated with it, that you're not represented and that you can't even have a safe discussion with anybody because it's just it's a minefield. And the whole world out there is represented by people who have opinions, but their opinions and their motivations for sharing those opinions aren't really in aligned with making America better, but just with themselves. Do you feel some of this somewhere?
Right here, collarbone area.
Lovely. Great work. When, Jerremy, in your life, as specifically as possible, did you feel this feeling?
Man, I think the very last times when I created something brand new from the ethos that had never been born before, and was a unique message to me, at least, and to the world, which was, I was in an Uber talking to a guy named Nick, and he wanted to learn how to trade Forex because he wanted to learn to make a lot of money. And I asked him how much money he had now, and he goes, I don't have any money, I have a lot of debt. And I said, well, you should pay off your debt before you start investing. He goes, dude, I can't pay off my debt. Money doesn't grow on trees. And then I said, of course it does. And I'd never said that before. And I started, in that moment, got those like goosebumps here-ish, right? That ring around your neck, that collarbone feeling, because weeks after that, I ended up starting a book called Money Grows on Trees, which ended up becoming a bestseller. because it's just a mindset shift. It's a financial shift of money and all abundant and encompassing that it is all around us. I think that energy, this collarbone, it's resting almost like a yoke. It's like, this is a responsibility, and you feel a weight, but it's not heavy. It's almost like you're getting pulled towards something. And for me, I think that is what's beautiful about what you said also, Kyle, is I haven't truly, I think, distilled down into short words and context what and why exactly I'm doing this podcast for others, because it is so new. And it's that bringing from the ethos into something that is physical, right? Taking the metaphysical into the physical, that's really exciting and just creates that propulsion and excitement for me.
How old do you think Nick was?
Nick was probably 37, if I had to guess. He wasn't super old, but wasn't super young. He had a family, wife and 2 kids at the time.
Do you think he went to school?
No, he did not. He was from the Ivory Coast. He immigrated to the U.S. He got a bunch of consumer loans in the mail. Didn't know what they were. It was like, wow, I show up to America and I just get money to my mailbox. This is awesome. We cashed in. So they're predatory loans, but he went into like $17,000 of debt. And I did help him get out of a decent portion of that debt, because I ended up hiring him as my driver. He was making $400 a week driving Uber at the time. And so I asked him if I could pay him $600 a week just to be my personal driver. And he didn't understand why anyone would do that. But I was like, listen, I know it's going to be good for me. And if it works for you, let's make this a deal.
Do you think Nick had at this point, he was in the country for a while, and I doubt we got to this level of like where would he feel in like politics, or do you feel like he would be able to have an opinion or an insight or power?
No opinion, no voice, powerless. Black as night. He said, I'm so black, if I sat in a hot tub, I'd make coffee. That one got me. I love this too. We always talked about race a lot, but I mean, as an immigrant, and at the time, I truly don't know, legal or illegal. I'm not entirely sure. Never asked. Yeah. But I do feel like if I asked him right now, even now, he probably feels marginalized. He probably feels voiceless. He probably feels like he has no real say-so in any politics, in any forum. So he just keeps his head down and work and pays taxes.
Excellent. Okay. Next moment. Tell me about the specific moment when this first occurred to you to either create this podcast or maybe I could be president.
Oh, I'll tell you the second one, the I can be president part. There's 2 instances. So I grew up, Kyle, as a Jehovah's Witness. And the reason that's important is because Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in politics. They take a scripture out of Romans a little bit out of context, where it says like, don't be any part of this world. And so they're like, all right, sweet. Don't be any part of this world. Don't go to college. Don't go to school. Don't get a good job. Don't vote in politics. Don't be a cop. Don't be a policeman. Don't be a firefighter. You can't really interact with your community in a positive way. I knew since the age of 6 that I was designed, created, or I was supposed to be president. Like, meaning I envisioned as like a 5, 6, 7-year-old, some people winning the Super Bowl. Mine was being on the podium, putting my hand on the Bible, right? Like swearing in as president. Like that was my Mecca. That was my end goal. But I wasn't allowed to say that as a witness. And so me and God had a lot of fights, like I said, up until like 26, 27, 28, because I was like, why would you create this in my heart if I couldn't be in here because I was in this religion? So that's a whole big 2-decade circle to get out of that pit. But to come full circle, I was at a really good friend's house. His name is Anil Gupta. He's also known as the Love Doctor. And I was hosting a retreat about money. And one of the parts of this retreat was to sit down and write down your biggest dream. Money is no object. You have $40 billion in cash. You can do whatever you want. What do you do every day? What's your goal? What are you creating? What are you building? And I wrote down for the first time in my life, it had always been here, but I never wrote it down. I will be president of the United States of America. And then obviously, of course, he made everyone share this one dream, the biggest, most hairy, audacious dream in the world. And when I said it, I stepped into it on accident. And this wasn't intentional. Like I was standing, I had to read this piece of paper to everyone in the audience, which was like 25 people.
Can you describe the room? Give me one little detail of the room.
Yeah, I mean, this perfectly. Beige carpet, white walls. Was an Airbnb. Everyone was on couches and like chairs. And so I'm sitting in front. There's a big TV behind me, like a Panasonic, big silver flat screen TV.
Yeah.
Everyone's sitting in chairs and couches in front of me. Different colors, people, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different religions. I can still see them right now. I work with a lot of those people to this day. And when I said that, I literally stepped forward and 4 people noticed that. One of them named David told the whole audience, did you guys just see how he stepped into that dream? And it was scary. It was terrifying. And for the first time, my wife just heard of this too. She didn't know this. And so she's like, shoot, what did I marry? What did I sign up for? And it was this really beautiful, emotional moment, man.
Amazing. Okay. Are you ready to hear your story, Jerremy?
Do this.
I step into an Uber after a busy day, and I meet somebody who would change my life forever. His name was Nick. And like many of the Uber drivers I have, we started chatting about our lives. He had a family, he had a wife and 2 kids. He was from the Ivory Coast and had immigrated here. And he told me this joke that he was so black that if he sat in a hot tub, he would make coffee. And I immediately start to laugh at this idea that sometimes is taboo for some people. I start to talk to him more about what he wants from this world and where he was going. And he started to describe as he arrived here, he was amazed that people would just send him money in the mail, but they were consumer loans. And now he was deep in debt. And all he said was, I just want to make more money. I want to get out of debt. And he said, I don't know how to do it. Seems like money doesn't grow on trees. Maybe he thought that a little while ago, but now he's certainly feeling like he doesn't have an opinion or a voice or power or marginalized. He's just there driving and driving and driving. And I feel this in a lot of way in my own life, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, being told for my whole life not to be involved in this world, not to have any part of this, not to have an opinion or speak out. And both of us coming from places and backgrounds where we weren't allowed to have our opinions and we had marginalized ourselves. And I start to think and wonder how much our systems of education perpetuate this. Nick didn't have that, but most of the systems of our economy, of our news, of our media, of our world, wanted all of us to be like this, quiet, frustrated, on the sidelines. I believed in Nick and I believed in this possibility. And after many adventures of making millions, losing millions, I thought that I could provide him at least an opportunity and a better chance. And I hired him as my driver. And I can remember on that day that I started to think of something, wanted something better, wanted to have a place where these discussions could be had, where the tension that seems to permeate every room across America would finally be relieved and we could talk and discuss about our dreams and our vision for a better country for ourselves and the world. I wanted to have a place where no single opinion was just there to ignite and inflame, but groups of people could come to solve problems and have longer discussions and open dialogue. I wanted to have a place where people actually had skin in the game in this discussion, not just trying to inflame people for more views like every other media outlet, but who had a vision for a better place. And a few years and a lot of adventures and costly and painful mistakes later, I remember myself sitting at a retreat, surrounded by many different leaders of different ethnicities, of different backgrounds, of different religions, all gathering around talking about their dreams. And I can remember for the first time that this idea came forward, this idea that seemed too big, too crazy, too wild. And I started writing it down. And I got up in front of this group of people standing on this beige carpet, surrounded by couches with people sitting and staring at me. And I just take a step forward and I say, I will be president of the United States of America. Everybody looks at me and they lean in, seeing that small step forward and noticing the power within that. And in addition to that small step, on the way, I wanted to create a podcast, a place where these discussions could be had. I wanted to start making an impact now, start having these discussions, start creating the vision for the America that I want, that Nick wants, that we all want and we all deserve, in a place where people can talk about that and feel safe and open to. And that's what I'm here to share with you today.
Yeah, that was skillful, my brother.
Thank you.
That was quite tremendous. I'm sure you have a software or something that's helping you.
No.
That's memory, dog?
I took a few notes, but...
Memory, dog? Come on, bro. That's good. That's really good, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a well-honed skill and muscle, and yeah, that's my gift to share.
That's your
Thank
gift.
you so much for witnessing me.
I love that. I love that. You have to do that for my wife. She will cry. She'll be one of those people with tears.
You got it. You
Yeah.
got it. Well, this is the climax. You've got your story now, and I hope it helps you on this quest. And I'm excited to see this adventure unfold over the coming years. To close things out, where can we go to learn more about you? And do you have any final thoughts for us today?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy, Kyle. The really best place to reach out to me, I'll just say openly, JerremyNewsome.com. Just keep in mind that my first name has 2 R's in it. My dad's name was Jerry, so it stands for Jerry and me. And so JerremyNewsome.com, all my stuff is there. Obviously, I love social media. It's a great platform. It's a great tool. I'm on all the socials. I have an amazing dedicated social media team. So if anyone reaches out to me, I do reply. I'm here. I'm time free. I have freedom of time to help people step into their greatness. And I would love for someone to reach out. So to that point, the final thing I will leave you with is I want everyone to realize and to truly understand that you can have everything that you want. It is available. Perfection's a very tough standard, but it's a really good standard to be aware of, to know what it looks like, to know what it feels like, to write it down, to get extreme clarity. Because if we have one job on this earth, it's to love, to be the biggest, brightest, boldest expression of love. And when you express love in all things, money, religion, politics, sex, family, wealth, prosperity, abundance, happiness, you really start expanding. And when you start expanding your cells, your awareness, your consciousness, you then start matching the universe, because the universe is always expanding. So when we contract, when we get scared, when we stop ourselves from wanting and asking for more, we begin to fight against the universal energy. So don't fight the universal energy. Lean into it, expand into your greatness. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Story Engine Podcast.